the Warren VFA building on Lawrence Street in Pepperell. It's the home of the Warren Veteran Firemen's Association and their antique fire apparatus, which will be going inside to see shortly. The building was built in 1976 on the land that was formerly of the Olson family. And Harold Olson was very much involved with the Warren, and his son Bernard was too, until it went inactive some 10 years later. It's a 50 by 36 building made out of 12-inch wide block. It's like 2,860 blocks in the building, and we built the thing ourselves. We had a lot of help from the late Ray Blood and Freddie Quartermarsh, who was the stonemason that did most of the brickwork and block work. We assisted Freddie a great deal with it, but it took us the entire summer of 1976, and we finally got it in here on the 9th of October. We got the doors on it, and we were able to put the tub in for the winter for the first time. Okay, this is another view of the building, the side view. You can see it's 50 feet long. It has an aluminum roof on it. It's a pretty safe building fire-wise, and a good place to keep old equipment like we have. And we're standing out here on the lawn. This is a 2-building acre lot. It goes down into the woods down in the back there. Probably you're looking at about 2/3 of it, the property right now. And there's our flagpole that Bob Morton built. And we keep the lawn mowed. It takes about an hour a week on a tractor to mow it. And it was all done by the members. They cleared all the land. It was just farm pasture until about 10 years ago, and we started to do the outside of the building. And now we have ourselves a lawn. And with it, we have the problem of maintaining it.
Bob, we're going to do a close-up shot of this reel that's in the front of the building.
Yes.
And if you would explain what that is.
That's an old hose reel. They used to use those in industry in case of a fire inside a building or something. They'd had hose on that reel, and they would pick it up and they'd drag it by hand. It moves very easily, and it's pretty flexible, and you can store it pretty easily too. It's made out of steel, so we took and we paint it up and leave it outside here in the summertime.
Where'd it come from?
It came from up in New Hampshire someplace, and it was out of an old mill up there, I guess. They have, all the factories and mills had hose reels. They had little hose houses that were probably about 10 by 10, and they had to house these things, and also the hose, and some of them even had hydrants inside them.
My goodness.
So they could hook right on and go.
Do you know how old this is?
Oh, that's probably somewhere from the early part of the 1900s here. These were common. In fact, St. Regis had them. Most of the, downtown, the paper mill, they had them. I imagine Bemis may have had them at one time.
This then, it's not part of the Warren equipment?
No, it's owned by the Warren, but it was something that somebody, once again, donated this to us, and they wanted us to display it outside, and we did.
Okay. All right, we have the Hancock in view here.
Okay.
Talk about it.
Okay, this engine that you're looking at now is called Hancock No. 1. It originally came from Brockton, Massachusetts, and it was the mightiest hand engine for mustering in New England back in about the first third of this century until the Depression hit. It had a tremendous record. It has extra long brakes on it. You can put about 70 men on there, whereas these other tubs are about 50. And they used to use the Brockton High School football team to pump it. And what they would do is the day of the muster, they'd go to the train station and they'd pick out the 120th biggest kids. And I can't imagine being able to turn people away because they just weren't big enough, and taking just 120 of them. But that's the way they'd go to musters. It had a record stream of 263 feet, which it did 3 times, about 1910 to 1915. And nobody came close to that record until 1962, and the protection went to 275. So the record stood up for approximately 50 years.
And where was the protection from?
It's from Newbury. It still is from Newbury.
Newbury?
Yeah, it still competes.
Uh-huh.
Does very well for itself.
Okay.
It at that time came from Brookfield, Massachusetts, which is out near Brockton. And this had the money won record too for any engine, which held up for another 50 years until protection finally overhauled it back in the 1970s, late 70s. It's an awful good engine. A bunch of people from Townsend bought it in 1976 and took it to league musters in 77 and promptly became league champions again. It's won the league championship a number of times in the past. It's a very powerful engine, and it's one that I'm glad that they bought it because it hadn't been active, really hadn't been active since the Brockton days.
Now, when was the last time it was pumped?
Pumped in the early 1980s.
Okay. You were telling me earlier that at one point in time this was put on a railroad
Yes.
car and a flatbed or something. And
In 1910, they were going to a muster up in Rochester, New Hampshire. And
now who owned it then, back in 1910?
Brockton had it.
Brockton,
owned it.
okay.
And they put it on a flat car, which was common for transportation in those days, a railroad flat car, and to go to a muster in Rochester, New Hampshire. Well, the crew went to Rochester, New Hampshire. The tub wound up going to Rochester, New York. So that was one muster they kind of stood by and did nothing at.
Did they pump on, they probably pumped on other tubs.
In those days, it was pretty much a thing that you didn't pump somebody else's tub.
Oh,
And,
that changed as the years went on.
Oh yeah, that certainly did. It certainly has changed. But so they probably didn't. They probably watched the muster and then went back to Brockton.
Right. All right. Go ahead.
Okay, you're looking across the building now at the Warren, which is up on a trailer. And unfortunately, we can't move it out to make a good, get a good shot of it because the Warren and the trailer weigh some 3 tons. And we don't have a truck big enough here at the moment to move it. You're looking at it, and it was our pride and joy. It's been in Pepperell since 1896, and it hasn't been a muster since 1986.
Almost 100 years.
Yeah, it's been here a little over 100 now.
Yes.
And we'd like to see it active again, but we need a younger crew to pump it. You're probably looking at some wheels of a hose reel too, which once went to the parades with the Warren, and would again probably if they took the tub out. In the back there's another hose reel that goes to Pepperell 1, which you can see has been restored. The Warren is it's an old traditional thing here in Pepperell. It's mustered with about 4 different crews over the last century. And the original group included a fellow by the name of Newell, who was I guess he'd be the great-grandfather of the Newell children that live in Pepperell now. In fact, one of the boys, Mark Newell, and his wife, Kathy, both were with the Warren back in the 70s, and they paraded, and Mark pumped with the Warren. But I think it was his great-grandfather, was one of the original crew members that came with the Warren when it first came to town. Of course, in those days, they didn't haul it on a trailer. They used to haul it on a flatbed truck, or if they went to a close-to-home muster, like in Townsend or Groton or someplace, they would haul it over the road with horses. And it made quite a name for itself. Was one of the very top tubs in New England back at that time. And it wasn't until the 1970s that their record was surpassed by the crew at the modern-day crew.
Bob, as I recall, this saw actual fire duty
Yes.
here in Pepperell?
No, it has never fought a fire in Pepperell.
Oh, it didn't. I thought once when there was something about some horses that fell in the canal or something, and
No, that happened in 1902. The steamer and the horses slipped on the ice and went in the canal, which was down near the mill on Main Street. It was a different configuration in those days, and there was a canal there somewhere, and it slipped into the river, and the horses drowned, and the steamer was badly damaged. They sent it back up to the Amoskeag Locomotive Works in Manchester, who had built the steamer, and they gave them one on loan. to use until theirs was fixed.
Okay, so but that wasn't the Warren.
No,
No.
the Warren was in town at that time and could have been used for firefighting, but it never was.
Okay.
It was bought by a bunch of men in the Pepperell No. 1 company, independent of the town, out of their own pockets, and they were to use for sporting purposes, which was mustering. And that was in 1896, and it's always been privately owned ever since.
Prior to it being purchased by this group of men from Pepperell, had it seen active duty elsewhere?
Yes, it had. It was bought in 1860 from the Button and Blake Company in Waterford, New York, brand new for $2,400 by the city of Roxbury, Massachusetts, and it was stationed on a street in Roxbury near the former home of General Joseph Warren, the Revolutionary War hero that was killed at the Battle of Bunker Hill, and that's where it got its name from. In fact, for many years it was known as the General Warren. It's only been since it's been here in Pepperell that it's been called Warren. It served there from 1860 to 1864, and it was sold for $1,200 to the town of Ipswich, Mass. It saw fire service there until the early 1890s when they upgraded their fire service. They probably bought a steamer, and they didn't really need the tubs anymore. So it was free to go to musters here and there, and it never did very well when it was in Ipswich. And it lost a contest to the Neptune in 1895, in the fall of 1895, to see which one of the two tubs they were going to keep for mustering. And the Warren lost it by about 8 feet. So it was turned into the Boston Woven Hose and Rubber Company towards some new hose that they needed. And they put it up for sale, and when the gang from Pepperell heard that there was a big Button engine for sale, which was bigger than this Pepperell 1, which we'll show you some of shortly. They had gone mustering with Pepperell 1, and they found out it wasn't big enough to really get the job done. So they sent 2 men down to see it on the 23rd of April of 1896. And it was down around Methuen, or Lawrence, where it was being kept at the time. They bought it on the spot and made arrangements to have it sent home. And it came home here the next day on the 24th of April. It's been here ever since. Okay, this is the box of the Pepperell 1 hand tub, which we also own. As you can see, everything's been taken off, and all the metal has been sandblasted and primered and inspected to see to it that it's all in good shape and there's nothing wrong with it. The reason for this is that we're building a new box for it. This one is 140 years old now, and it's quite rotten. We'll show you another view of it from the other side of it, and you can see how bad it is.
Bob, this looks to be considerably smaller than the Warren.
It is. It is. The whole machine was smaller. It was about it's about 1,000 pounds lighter in weight.
Is this a different class?
No, it's a Class A machine.
It's a Class A.
But it's the number 2 size Button machine.
When you say Button, are you referring to something specific on the hand tub?
Yes, it was the builder. Name was Lysander Button.
Oh,
and
okay.
He built engines from 1834 until he sold the company sometime in the 1880s.
Okay, I'm going to stop. Okay, now we're looking at the inside of this box.
Okay, this is the inside of the box. You can see right here where I'm putting this rod down through, how rotten that is. This is the front, that's where the pipe goes through for your discharge pipe, so that's not rot, but this right here is, as you can see. Also up in the back, right up here in this corner, it's rotten too.
Yeah.
And for that reason, a full restoration is needed. We need to have the whole new box rebuilt.
Okay.
We have the wood over here that we're preparing for the new.
Okay.
This is the wood that is being prepared for the new box that we'll be able to use. We want to do a full restoration on it and hopefully get it out for the year 2000.
What kind of wood is it?
That's white oak.
White oak?
Yeah.
Is this a donation?
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't?
No. It came from up in Maine. We got a very good price on it, but no, it wasn't a donation. We would appreciate donations because we do need donations to do things later, like when we have the lettering put on the thing. It's quite expensive today to have the lettering put on.
With the boxes up there. Go ahead.
Okay, what you're looking at up in the rafters are the two sides from the old Pepperell, the old Warren box that we rebuilt in 1969. And you can see the rotten wood on the bottom of the box there. It was rotten so bad you could stick a screwdriver right through it. So that's why we built the new box that the Warren has. It's an exact duplicate of the old, made out of mahogany like the old one was. And everything's in the same place that was on the old one. We would like to take those sides someday, the solid part of them, and use them for shelves along the walls to put some of these trophies on, with the name Warren showing down, so you can see it.
What a nice idea.
Yep.
Okay, we've got it. Go ahead.
Okay, what you're looking at up overhead is the wiffle tree that actually came with the Warren. And it's been many, many, many years since it was used, but we did some restoration on it, and we hung it up there just as a curiosity piece, and also to get it out of the way. But you can see where the two horses were hooked on the back there, and then the tub would be hooked up front here. And that's how they took it to fires, and even parades and so forth, back at the turn of the century. And they probably did it this way up through about 1930. It's only been in recent years, since '55 on up, that they've dragged the thing by hand.
So most of these hand tubs were actually pulled by teams of horses?
Oh, yes, yes.
And this one was a team of two?
Yeah. You have to realize that the hand tub without water in it weighs 2 tons.
Yes.
So it's amazing that in the parades, it takes 20 men to pull it, but they pull it quite well, up hills and everything else, it seems.
Bob, I'm going to try to focus in on the banner that's up there. I know we have a light that's there, but let's see if we can get it. Would you read what it says and then tell us about it?
New England States Veteran Firemen's League 1979 points champion. Well, it won the championship, the points championship, in '79 and '80 both. It's a winner of the Joseph Herman Trophy for consistent performance, which it's a points trophy is what it is. And it's contested for every year based on the points that you get for how you finish at the musters. Joe Herman was a former president of the league from out of Mystic, Connecticut, and he passed away about that time. And the group from Mystic wanted to honor him somehow, so they came up with a points trophy. The league championship is contested by for the Brennan Cup, which is a big silver bowl.
Is that?
Which the Warren won in 1970.
Is that it right there?
No.
On the table?
No, it's like that, but it's much bigger.
Oh.
It's much bigger.
Okay, that's not it then.
No, you get that for a year, and if you don't win it the next year, it has to go back.
Oh, you give it back?
Yeah, you get your name on it, and that's about it.
All right. Do you know where it resides now?
It resides in Amesbury right now.
Okay.
Governor Bradstreet won it this year.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
What you're looking at now is called a roof hook, and they were used in the cities to pull down buildings with. That, as you know, in the cities, there would be a whole row of buildings, right one next to the other and so forth. There would be no gap between them. And once a fire got going in the old days, it would just go right up the whole block. So what they'd do is they'd put a small building every so often along the block that could be pulled down if they needed to. It would be a shop or something that would occupy it. And they'd drop one of these roof hooks on it and help pull the building down, and so that you made a fire break between the big buildings.
Bob, this looks like this is all manpower, not horsepower?
Well, that one is. Now the other one, the other roof hook down at the end of the building down there, as you can see, it spans just about pretty close to the whole width of the building. It's 31 feet 4 inches long. Okay. And there's a chain up there you can see. Yes. And they used to hook another chain to it and hook that to a horse, because once they dropped this hook on the peak of the building, the horse could pull the building down for them. Okay. And the other hook you looked at was probably for ripping certain pieces of the building away, but this one was used to collapse the thing. And we bought these at an auction up in Manchester, New Hampshire, 10 years ago. And we thought they were so unusual that we had to have them in here, because how often do you see a roof hook, much less one that's 31 feet long?
That's right. By today's standards, that would never be used.
No, that's right. That's right. Today they'd have the fire out, but in the old days they saved an awful lot of cellars.
That's right. Yeah. Hence the cellar savers, right?
Yeah.
That was real.
Okay, you can see in the back, I'm afraid we can't get it out because this place is so packed in right now, but that's the hose reel for the Pepperell 1. That's already been restored. You can see by the drop hole up in the air there, it hooks on the back of the tub. And that's an unusual thing for these big Class A engines. They usually didn't have hose reels that hooked onto it. We don't think that that's original from the factory. We think it was something that was here in town, and it was adapted to the Pepperell 1 so that you could tow the two together.
Now, Bob, you say this piece has already been restored. How many work hours are there in it?
Oh, there's probably a good week of time, say 40 hours anyway, because we had to sandblast everything down to the bare finish and primer it and then paint it and then stripe it and so forth. So there's probably a good 40 hours in it.
Okay. Now, in front of this, we have something that looks like an old fire tub or wash tub or something.
Yeah.
Tell me what this is.
This was the pumping tank that we used for practice. The big hole on top on the left is where the suction hose from the engine goes in, and the small hose up in the back, well, this wheel from this other hose reel's in the way, but that's what we would fill from. We'd fill it with a big hose. But
that's not a part of any of the hand tubs,
no.
then? It's just
No.
it's something that you've acquired to use as...
Yeah, just a tank to pump out of.
Okay. All right. All right. Bob, I can't get close enough to this sign so that it can be read, but if you'd like to tell me what's on there.
Well, this is a sign that Bill Campbell made back better than 25 years ago now, and it's a brief history of the Warren. And we took it to Musters, and whenever the thing was on display or anything, we put this sign out for people to read, and it drew a lot of interest. Always appreciative of donations that anybody wants to make to help out with the rebuilding of these machines and the maintaining of them.
Bob, if somebody wanted to make a donation, who would they make a check to?
Warren Veteran Firemen's Association.
You still have an active account?
Yes, oh yes, we do.
Okay.
Because we still have yearly bills we have to pay. And so forth.
Okay.
What we're primarily concerned with is getting this other engine together. And
The Pepperell 1?
Yes.
Yes.
And it's going to take some money when we start getting into the lettering and so forth, the striping and so forth.
Okay.
That doesn't come cheap these days.
No, no. All right.
Now you have a sign in front of you, Warren 1860 Pepperell, Mass. It's one of two. They go on the end of the brakes of the Warren when it's traveling over the road so that the brakes won't fold down when they're driving.
Okay, there's a shot of the brakes.
Yep.
The two bars that extend
Right.
towards us.
And the sign goes over the two of them,
Across
Yep.
the end and hooks onto
Yes.
the ends of them.
on both the front and rear of the
Okay.
machine. Yeah.
And as well as a sign, that serves to keep what?
Keeps the brakes up. It keeps them from folding down.
Oh, I see, because when they're being pumped,
They're folded down.
that falls down,
Yep.
and the crossbars that go from front to back are what everyone holds onto
Yep.
to pump.
Right.